Anthony freaking Yeager, what's going on, man?
Oh, feels good.
Feels good. What
Yes,
feels
sir.
good?
Feels good to be talking about politics.
Oh, it does. I know.
Although
took a little
it's the worst
hiatus.
time.
Well,
Yeah.
or is it the best time? Because it's crazy, chaotic, and entertaining, which is all you can ask for in the political world, right?
Yes, that's true. I tell you what, we seem to just start up right when terrible things happen, which is bad for the country but good for us.
Yeah, it's great. I listen to this guy actually on YouTube quite regularly who just passed 1 million subscribers, and someone asked him the question about, well, are you afraid that if Trump loses, your your views will go down and like your number of people listening will go down? He's like, I'm not afraid if that will happen. I know it will happen. He's like, it's definitely going to happen. Right now, it's so crazy what's going on that I already know I'm getting way more views than normal because of mainly Trump's presidency. So yeah, absolutely. If Biden wins, my views will go down. So I had to laugh at that because it's definitely true.
Actually, I would say if Biden wins, views will go up because ain't no way Mr. Trump's leaving.
But okay. So the thing that comments about what Trump's, oh, you mean like he's not stepping down, or he's just going to be commenting forever on the sideline until the
No,
end
I'm
of the
saying
world?
if well, I want to talk about this at length, but I'm saying if he loses, which I would guess he would, but who knows? But if he does, I don't think he's just going to be like, "Yep, I lost." I think he's going to hold on
Okay.
for dear life.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let me just say thank you for the people tuning in after a little bit of a hiatus from our podcast. We are very happy to be back. I, for one, was having withdrawal symptoms in a very extreme sense. I found myself waking up in corners, crying because I hadn't talked about politics. So I'm happy to be back. I don't know if Anthony's been able to function without continuing our weekly podcast, but I know I'm very happy to be back.
Much like everything in my life, I just drink to repress it.
There we go.
Fortunately, I can drink on this podcast, and I do have a beer of the week.
Oh, wow. This was not planned, so I'm actually impressed about this. I have a beer as well, so let's see if it's the same one. Go ahead.
Well, I thought I want to go for something. I don't want to be too crazy. I don't want any puns. Something
Okay.
reliable. I thought about going with Miller Lite. I really did. I whipped out a Sycamore Mountain Candy, which I know you hate.
Sycamore Mountain Candy. Are you serious? That's what you're drinking right now?
Yep, that's what I'm drinking.
For real? Like, are you 100%
Yes.
like serious?
I'm as serious as a heart attack.
You mean this glorious pink can with the maple leaf on
Are
it?
you drinking it right now?
Yep.
I thought you didn't like it.
No, I actually do like it. So, first of all, I hate the name. The name is like embarrassing, so I'm gonna have to bleep out that part of the podcast. The word mountain candy just doesn't make sense to me, and it's embarrassing because it sounds like a girl drink, and I'm like, nah, I'm a man.
Oh,
Like I can't have a
it's
girl
not PC.
drink. No, but it is CP. So I really will leave that to people to figure out what that stands for because even I don't know. But
Well,
no,
listen.
I've never liked the name, and I didn't like the taste the first time I had it, but I actually drink it all the time now, believe it or not.
It's really good. It's high percentage. It's the only non-mainstream beer in Charlotte that has a billboard. There's a mountain candy billboard
Seriously?
off of 77 exit 10A, Moorhead Street. Goes right to the strip club. Not that I've ever been there,
There we
but
go.
that's where it goes. There's a mountain candy billboard. Obviously, you get your Miller Lite or your Bud Light billboards, but that's corporate. That's corporate.
That's pretty cool, man. I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
news to me.
And we didn't coordinate that we were both drinking these.
To be honest with you, I didn't even think you really liked drinking IPAs because you keep making fun of our friendly buyers about drinking, well, just about everything in life, really. But
Yeah,
I mean,
Lee Byers. Well, I'm glad we're shouting out Lee Byers.
have to every pod.
Yeah, well, shout him out. I don't have any negative comments for him. I like all drinks. Miller Lite's a go-to. I like IPAs. I enjoy whiskey. So
That's fair. So everything.
I'm not.
I've actually started drinking tequila more recently.
Ooh.
Anejo. I think it's Anejo. I'm probably butchering the hell out of that, but let me make sure. Anejo tequila. Yeah. So it's a flavor. So it's not a brand. Anejo is like the darker colored tequila. And I've been drinking that lately just because I kind of went through a phase of each different, like moonshine, freaking rum, then bourbon, whiskey, everything. And now I'm on tequila. And it's interesting because I don't really get, this is kind of funny to say, but I don't really get hangovers from tequila. So I don't really know if that's something innate with tequila or just how it doesn't mix well. I also don't really get tipsy with it, so maybe that's why. So, but yeah, I've been drinking some
I've
tequila lately.
I've seen several women drink too much tequila and be hungover.
Okay,
So I don't
so
know if
probably not.
there's a different effect. Maybe you're not. See, well, they were drinking it out of the bottle, so maybe that was the problem.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm not getting hangover because I don't drink that much at one time. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, that's
Um,
certainly my problem.
but I am pretty surprised that we're both drinking mountain candy right now. That makes me happy. That means this was meant to be.
This was meant to be. So I want to circle up. So there've been well, there's the election coming up. There's a COVID pandemic, but there's also a Supreme Court seat that's open.
Since when?
So where were you when you heard the news?
I was, damn, where was I? I don't remember exactly where I was. I might have been at my sister's house, like in her backyard or something. I don't know. I just remember I picked up my phone and I'm in a Discord group with like a bunch of guys I play games with, and someone said something about RBG dying, and I'm like, who is RBG? I'm like, who are these guys talking about? And then I opened it up and I was like, oh damn. I was like, are you kidding me? She had to die 40 freaking days before the election.
Yep,
That sounds so insensitive to say. I am
I
sorry,
know.
but everyone knew she was kind of on her way out. She's fairly old and had a lot of health issues. So I was like, man, but I'll be honest with you, it didn't really click with me till several days later that means the Republicans have time to essentially fill that seat. For some reason in my mind, I thought it wouldn't get passed because the Democrats could stonewall it, but that's not the case. So it took me a couple days to register what was happening.
Yeah, so I was at a bar with a friend, just trying to enjoy my Friday night after working myself to death all week.
There we go.
And he's like, Ginsburg died. And I'm like, no, you're just messing with me because you know how I am. I don't want to hear this. He's like, no, 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 she really died. So I Google it. I'm like, and I immediately felt all the ramifications. I was just trying to enjoy some nachos and
Damn,
some Jack Daniels,
dude,
and I was like, Ginsburg's dead. And I like, well, I knew we're not in a good spot.
that's
So
crazy, man. I
I'm gonna
mean,
rush
that's
it through.
you have a little bit clearer memory to me. Answer me this though. Okay, so this is coming from someone who I am not someone who's afraid to say like I haven't looked into this topic very much, and the Supreme Court is one of those topics that I have heard more right talking points around the Supreme Court than I have the left case around the Supreme Court. So what I mean by that is I grew up in very conservative circles, very Christian, conservative Christian circles. I wouldn't say super fundamental, but definitely more that way than anything else you could really reference. So I've always heard the arguments for why a conservative judge on the Supreme Court, what the logical case is for that, as opposed to a lot of cases being made from the left, what an ideal left judge would look like, if that makes sense. So whereas I have like certain elements I understand, I'm very lost as to why the left, like what the left would prefer to see in a Supreme Court justice. Like, is there an ideology there that they're looking to see in a Supreme Court, or do they just hate anything that's right in terms of how they handle it? I mean, I don't know if you have a little bit more insight on that.
I think, well, you want to see a judge that's going to, I think this goes for both parties. You want to see a judge that's going to, when you pass laws and policies, that's going to uphold them or reaffirm them.
Yeah.
So in this case, this was the deal with the devil that the Republicans made. And honestly, they may never pay a price. I don't know. But it was, I think for a lot of Republican, at least like power players, I think Mitch McConnell is probably the most powerful man in this country, not Donald Trump. But the deal was like, we're going to deal with Trump, but we're going to get conservative judges, not just on the Supreme Court, but throughout the entire American judicial system. So there's been
Yeah.
this, like, for 4 years now, there's been this kind of just plethora, I guess, of right wing judges getting appointed that no one really talks about. But as far as the Supreme Court, you want the major policies upheld. So now things like the first thing that comes to mind is abortion, Roe v. Wade. So
Sure.
you got to say that's going to go Obamacare. But I think, to me, the
See,
thing
but
that
I
could
want to
get
know.
really,
I need specifics. So I need to know what is it within the judge's mind that rules one way or another when it comes to the issue of abortion? Is it because they disagree on where life begins, and so that's the dilemma? Where's the tension lie that makes someone more of a left-leaning judge versus a right-leaning judge? And that's what I know what conservatives like to see in a judge. The case I've always heard is the Supreme Court should be filled with people who interpret the laws the way it was intended to be interpreted at the time it was written. So you don't essentially have any wiggle. And again, I'm not saying this is how it's normally carried out. This is just the case as it's made. Um, is you don't have any wiggle room in interpreting the law. Whatever it was intended to mean is what you're supposed to keep with it. Whereas I've always heard, and keep in mind this has been characterized from the right what the left believes. So I'm sure there's wrong aspects of this, but the left believes more in evolving what the law means. So, equal rights back in the 1800s means something very different to the original writers of the law versus some now where we think equal rights includes more groups of people, just to use an example. And so they would extend what equal rights means based on what the progression of, I guess, values has happened within the country. And so they have a little bit more wiggle room on how they would interpret the law. And so I'm very curious when it comes to things like Roe v. Wade. I hear that being a big item, obviously, but I want to know, like, and I'm not saying you have to answer this because I don't know if you know, but I'm just curious what the specific distinction is on an issue like Roe v. Wade where they would judge differently, if that makes sense.
Well, I would say this. It's so the conservative, again, I think this is very politicized, but I think
Sure.
if you want to get down to a general thing, it's like conservatives want judges who are going to interpret it again as it was originally intended. I think that's accurate. And then more liberal judges are going to be open to an interpretation that kind of adapts with the times and the documentation.
Sure.
One of my biggest problems, and this is a different subject, is that we're running a country based on ideals from 300 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that's another subject.
It
With
is.
justices, I think today, at least in modern politics, I don't think it matters the party. You just want judges who are going to uphold what you pass. And so the biggest thing is, again, probably the next 18 months, it's going to be abortion. It's going to be Roe v. Wade because it's coming.
Sure.
And first of all, if you think, well, the country's bad now, so maybe this doesn't pass it, but
Sure.
I'm sure you'll see people in the streets if they overturn Roe v. Wade. You know,
Yeah.
so that's something interesting. But I don't know if it's a matter of the judge's intent. I think you want a judge that's going to be friendly to your policies.
See, but I don't like that. I'm like, it's
But
funny.
I know, but
I
that's
really don't like
politics.
that way of looking at it, but I understand that's the world we live within. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, that's just how they operate. And I get what you're saying, and I think you're right. It's funny because every time I've taken a personality test and they give you those recommended careers, I've actually gotten the recommendation of like a judge. That's actually been my like a recommended output for me because I tend to, when I'm at my best, keep in mind that rarely happens, but when I am at my
Yeah,
best, I tend to
agree.
care more about what the rules are, how policy is like what do the laws state, what do the rules state, kind of like, and just blanketly apply those regardless of the circumstances. So like I enjoy impartiality in the execution of the law. That is like a tenet of my personality in every aspect you look at is I like an impartiality to how you deal with judgment. So I don't like to show favor to, even if you're someone that's a close friend versus a stranger, I'm not going to show partiality to you just because you're my friend if there's a kind of an issue where maybe you did something a little dicey. That's just kind of my own structure I work from. So I like a system that says, look, we're going to interpret the law as it's intended to be interpreted, regardless of where the cards may fall, regardless of what political party's policy it supports. And so I don't really know where that puts me, whether it's right or left, because I tend to think the view on the right is very short-sighted because obviously um, as people develop and evolve, they're going to like what was cruel and unusual punishment back then is not the same as what it is now. And I don't think I think it's okay to evolve and you're judging based on what the values of the people are at the time. But at the same time, that could lead to some dangerous roads. So I can kind of see how the right has some criticism against that. So I don't, when it comes to Roe v. Wade or whatever issue may want to come, it just seems to me like I hate all this outrage that happens because we just want to get a Supreme Court that agrees with all our politics. I mean, that just, I don't know. And maybe I'm being naive here, but that just seems to kind of defeat the purpose of a judge who's supposed to be impartial, if that makes sense.
I guess the problem is I don't know if that nonpartisanship and ability to make decisions without favoring a party exists in our modern political society.
That's
The other
fair.
thing
That's
The other thing
100%.
I'll call nonsense on is the intent. Yeah, the intent of the judges was for them to not be, favoring one side or the other. So you give them a lifetime seat,
Sure.
this, and that. But and I haven't done research on this, but there's always been political parties, and there's always been a president that was one political party or another. So of
Sure.
course that president's going to appoint a judge that agrees with them. I mean, that just makes logical sense. I think the problem is now, for me, you kind of scale it back. The Senate controls this. The
Yeah.
Senate
Yeah.
is controlled by Republicans.
Yep.
But yet, based on the way the system is set up from 1776, Republicans almost never win a national popular vote in the Senate, in the House, or the presidency.
Sure.
Yet, they control two-thirds chambers. So now you have a weird situation based on a system from 1776 where the minority votes, right? The minority of the votes are going to have the majority of the power. And not only
Yeah.
that, not only for the power until, this election cycle, but they're going to get to appoint a justice that's going to probably be in their 40s or 50s and have say on policy for the next 40 years as the rest of the American public continues to progress in one direction. The court's going to keep us there. Trump's political bet is he just wants to cram a Republican through. He doesn't care, as we know, about any long-term things. He just cares about his short-term self-interest.
Yeah.
That's why I say, like, Mitch McConnell's a genius. This is a deal with the devil. He's not going to have to pay the price for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different directions that we can go with this because, I mean, obviously there's the easy, low-hanging fruit of the hypocrisy from what they did with Merrick Garland with Obama and how they're handling it now. I mean, that's
too easy to hit.
That's depressingly easy to hit. I wish it wasn't that easy because that's so depressing that that's even an issue. But, leaving that aside just for a moment, I just really don't like the idea that we're supposed to select judges that will support policies we want to be supported. I think ideally I would like to see judges chosen based on trusting their judgment of following through with what the law is supposed to say. I realize that's naive and that's not how it works. I get that, but I just don't seem to have a home within either parties because the left just wants a Supreme Court that's going to uphold any and every policy they implement, almost with no regard to if it's like if you were to take the average American and say, what's your philosophy on how a judge should operate and what their judicial judgment should be? No one gives a damn or even understands what that question means or how to operate.
Yeah.
But if you ask them, what's your position on having a Supreme Court justice who upholds Roe v. Wade or doesn't? They're going to have opinions on that because they care more about the outcome than they do about the integrity of the decisioning process. And so for me, I hate the whole conversation about the Supreme Court. I don't have a home on either side because I feel like both sides are just trying to shove the court with people that will agree with their predetermined policy conclusions about stuff. And that to me is just innately frustrating with the way I'm kind of wired, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that assessment, but I think that's not just the Supreme Court. I guess that's the whole American
political system. I mean, it's politics,
which
right?
is a problem.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get their appointee crammed through. I'm pretty sure there's nothing the Democrats can do.
Can they? Because I've been hearing all these freaking wacky theories about like what the Democrats can do, but I can't think of anything that would stop this from happening in my mind.
No, they can't. So here's the argument: the Democrats are gonna kick and scream. They can't do anything.
Yeah.
The flip side is if Biden wins and you get the Senate and you keep the House, now you control all three chambers for at least 2 years, assuming Trump leaves.
Sure.
The liberal argument is going to be, and I'm not saying it should be because there's long-term consequences to this, but it would be to say, hey, you know what? The Republicans stole 2 Supreme Court seats from us. We're going to pack the court.
Yeah,
and
by adding
add
more
2
seats,
more
right?
justices.
Yeah.
So that I don't know if Biden would be the person to do that. He's kind of spoken against it, so I don't know. I could see a president like Bernie Sanders, even Elizabeth Warren doing it. I don't know if that's something Biden would advocate for, but I see the argument to it, but I just don't know if that's a can of worms you want to open.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you just have to eat it. I don't know what else you do.
Yeah, this is a tension me and my brother were talking about as well. It's like, do you just go, all right, you're going to play dirty as hell. I'm going to play dirty as hell. And I'm going to outmaneuver you in this game of who can, this race to the bottom that we're going to have and just operating on purely partisan interest. It's like, all right, I'm going to be smarter than you in this game. And I feel like that's how the Republicans handle everything is it's like they understand principles, integrity, all that shit means absolutely nothing. They're just about winning, and giving the facade that they have morals is like a well refined process for them, while in reality they all understand it doesn't matter at all. There's no way you can rationalize what they did to Merrick Garland with what they're doing now if you don't clearly understand that people like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Rand Paul, these mother effers are just completely okay with blatant hypocrisy as long as they can win and do what they want to do, and they rationalize it however damn well they want to. I don't give a damn. But that's the game they're willing to play. They understand, like, I don't care. In 50, 60, 90, 100 years from now, no one's going to be like, oh, they're being hypocritical. No one's going to be whining about that. We're still going to have the Supreme Court and all the policy legislation that comes from that. So that's what matters. And so as a Democrat, you have the ability to go, well, are we going to understand that's the way they're playing it? So we have to be equally as savvy and less principled as they are, or when they go low, do we go high? And that's the approach you're going to try to do. And it's a really interesting conversation, and one, to be honest with you, I don't really know the answer to. And I understand the tendency to want to add more seats to the Supreme Court, but where does that end? I feel like you just keep ping-ponging the BS back to each side, you know?
Well, you're between a rock and a hard place if you're the Democrats, because if you keep they're bringing a knife to a gunfight, but out of good intention, because they think the other side won't shoot them, when the other side will shoot them when their back is turned.
Yeah.
But the flip side is, if you bring guns, then you just leave with more bloodshed. So that is to say, you pack the court, that gets you 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
And then what are the Republicans going to do when they have power back when the pendulum swings?
Yeah. Do you add more seats? I mean, come on.
The one thing we've seen consistently, and right now the Republicans are the one doing it, but is the power always swings.
Yeah, the power always swings and it always gets abused. Like, I feel like I have a little bit, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like I have a little bit of a blind spot to Democratic corruption because I've only been following politics for about 4 years now, which has primarily been under a Republican power, if you will. Now, I have done research of previous administrations in current day, but I wasn't in the time when I was researching it. And so I feel like I'm a little lopsided in my worldview about the amount of corruption that might be on the Democratic side. But it seems to me like I don't know when it ends if you're constantly having both sides almost like happily engaging in these underhanded tactics and hypocrisy just to see if they can one up the other side. Like, I don't know what the end result of that. It feels like that would be just very, very, very bad.
Maybe this is the end result. You had the parties going back and forth like this for years, and then finally Obama wins, but the Republicans get control, gerrymandering, voter suppression, all that.
Yeah.
And it leads to Trump. And everyone wants to cry drama, but I don't know if there's ever been a president like, and this is another topic to discuss. Like, if he loses, what happened? Like, really, what happens? Is he gonna?
Yeah,
lose?
let's get into that.
Stage.
So I'm very interested. So just to kind of cap the conversation we just had about the Supreme Court, I think this is my personal opinion. I think it makes complete sense for any sitting president to be able to nominate a Supreme Court justice at any given time if it happens during their term. I'm fine with that. Whether it gets passed through the Senate, that's up to the Senate. But functionally, I'm fine with that. The reason I hate what the Republicans are doing is because they made such a virtue signaling stink about it in 2016, as if it was, unexcusable for a president to do that during an election year. But now they're doing it and, laughing while they're doing it. And so I hate the Republican Party for their blatant willingness to be hypocritical and then act like they're patriotic in that hypocrisy. So to me, I can rant all day about that. But I just, to me, that's kind of my cap to the Supreme Court, is like, I feel like I just don't have any home within any type of way, and I don't really know what the easiest way forward is. So you can kind of cap your perspective on it as well. But I'm very interested to see what your thoughts are on, if Trump does lose, what that plays out like.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know what the good answer is for the Supreme Court, but if I'm the Democrats, I don't blame you for packing the court.
Yeah, me either.
Because you're losing these battles every time. So
yeah.
that's the problem. So obviously what you're doing isn't working, so at least try something else. But
fair enough.
The future of the democracy, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think we're necessarily going to collapse, but that leads us to Trump. So
yeah.
There was a huge article in the Atlantic today. It probably took me 25 to 30 minutes to read.
Damn.
Basically about how Trump is laying the groundwork to say the results are rigged. And with all the actions he's taken, the things he said in rallies, the short of it is he's hedging his bets, and he knows. And I think if you ask someone who do you think would win, you'd probably say you think Biden will win. That would be my assessment. I don't
Yeah.
know, but gun to my head, I'd say Biden at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe not before COVID, but this is where we're at.
Sure.
So if Trump knows he's going to lose, so he's taking the actions necessary to kind of lay the foundation. I think the question is, if he loses, what we know is we know he's going to say it's rigged.
Sure.
There's just no way he's demonstrated that he's going to be a great loser.
Yeah.
So he's going to say it's rigged. His base will believe him. Will the Republicans in power, what will they do? And I think that's the biggest question and the biggest test. Now, we've seen these tests before. Time and again, they've sided with Trump.
Sure.
Obviously, this is will be the most monumental thing, but so far history has shown us they're gonna do what he says.
Sure.
So I don't know. And it looks the polling looks pretty good for the Democrats to potentially take the Senate, which is crazy. So I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to kind of keep it narrowed in with Trump and the presidency. I think so. It's very interesting because I agree with you. It's like I definitely don't see him. So let's back up one more. Trump is a master, and I say genius in the sense that not as
stable genius,
not as very stable genius. Sorry, all the losers out there, but I don't mean this as a compliment or as a virtue. I mean, as the way he exercises it is more as like a vice. Is he's very good at double speak and reading people and manipulating people, like all those attributes from like dictators and con men that you see. He's very good at a lot of that. And so I mean that in the worst sense possible. And so to me, he is obviously laying the groundwork, assuming one of two outcomes are going to happen. He either wins and in that case claims victory and moves on, even if it's rigged. And obviously he's been doing things, and we can talk about this in future, but like with what's happening at the USPS and straight up telling his, oh my God, dude, this pisses me off, but straight up telling his people to test the integrity of the voting system by voting in person and mailing their voting, like literally asking people to go ahead and cheat the system. So he's doing what he can to rig the system for him to win. But because Trump's not a dumbass, he understands I might lose. And so how do you counter a loss? Well, you say it was rigged. You say the integrity of the election wasn't right, and there's no way he could have possibly lost, and that this is not accurate. And so he starts to challenge it that way in every underhanded way you can think of. So my mindset at this time is either he wins and it was done because of underhanded ways, and that's one outcome, or he loses but he claims it wasn't done the reason he lost was because the election didn't have integrity in the results. And so then it becomes an issue of exactly what you said is what happens. I mean, does the Republican leadership side with the results of the election, or do they side with Trump? I have not seen anyone with a spine in the Republican Party personally, so I think they would personally side with Trump. So then you have this weird dynamic where it's like, well, the current sitting president and the Republican Party are all citing that, saying the election was rigged. What path forward do we really have at that point? And that to me is just kind of I don't want to be over dramatic, but it's kind of a scary outcome, because it's like, well, who do you go to make that determination? Is it the Supreme Court? Like, is that where it goes, or who makes that call? I don't really know.
Well, so this is the problem. I think so the system we have, again, from 1776 has worked through 45 presidents. Trump's the 45th.
Yeah.
But I think the system is like the equivalent of an old bridge with a lot of traffic sitting on top of it, and it's kind of straining, and that traffic's got to get off of it or it's going to collapse. And I don't think our traffic's getting off of it.
Yeah.
And so we could just let's walk through what this looks like. People have already started absentee voting. They can't count the ballots yet. They have them. Early in-person voting will probably start next month in October, which is only a week away throughout the states.
Sure.
Election day is what? Let me see here. November 3rd? Something like that? Yeah, so election day is November 3rd. People vote. Polls close 7 o'clock East Coast, 10 o'clock Pacific. We're watching CNN to watch the results come in. A lot of Democrats are mailing in their ballots, which are going to take longer to get counted.
Exactly.
It is going to look like Trump is winning.
Exactly.
Probably.
Initially, almost for certain, to be honest, unless he loses by like crazy numbers, that's exactly what will happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and which I don't. Again, that is a possibility. Biden could clean up. I really think there's a universe where that happens. but